Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's this kind of quite like raw, untouched, almost like without all of the, but I guess with the negative connotations too, but this kind of like occult energy, you know, to femininity. Actually, in the little paragraph that I wrote for FCL when I applied, I was talking about the moon a lot, you know, and I don't know. I mean, the moon comes into play in terms of like physicality, you know, with the cycle of your period. You know, it's like in line with the waves, and the waves are in line with the moon, and you know, like it's all this kind of like interconnectivity between like fluids. You know, that's kind of horrible, isn't it? But it's also kind of wonderful.
Is it horrible? No, I think it's great.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think that there's this kind of, it's not supernatural because it is so natural, but this like mysteriousness to femininity, and I don't know. I think like I love reading. Like I spend lots of time just buried in books, and you know, femininity is something that's been kind of shaped and molded for so long, and like I don't know. I remember reading at university these passages from medieval manuscripts or like medieval plays, and there's this association of like femininity with the natural world. You know, like you have the idea of the garden, and then the town and the home is like the masculine terrain. But it's always like a garden that has something like a bit strange going on, like fairies or goblins or some like kind of underground world.
Like fantastical.
Exactly. So I don't know. Yeah, and then I feel like there's so much creative possibility from that, because it's just like, well, I mean, it's what we were talking about earlier. Like it's kind of, it's play, you know.
Yeah, I really relate what you're saying about the moon, especially. I remember them kind of studying the effect that the cycles of the moon have on deer, and then realizing, okay, there is an effect there, and there's an effect on a bunch of other animals. And I remember reading that and thinking, wait, hang on, we're animals too, right?
Yeah.
The moon definitely has an effect on us. I remember just last night being a nightmare because it was a full moon and the summer solstice all at once, and I was going through it.
Really?
Yeah. Also, with what you were saying about kind of like the fantastical elements on nature, it makes me think about how a lot of people often ascribe a kind of like gentle nurturingness to femininity.
Yeah.
But there's also the kind of like force of nature, right, or calamity, which is also like, you know, the wrath of Mother Nature kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know? And so it has, you know, all of these elements to it.
Yeah, like the duality. The duality. And that, I mean, I guess that's another amazing thing, is that it isn't, you know, it's a whole multiplicity. It isn't just one kind of thing put in a box and given to everyone, you know. But yeah, I think you're so right about like what you were saying about the animals, because what do you remember what effect it has on deers? Or?
I can't remember. I would be going off. I think it was, there were a few things, but I think one of them was they're more skittish around the full moon.
Yeah.
And you can attribute some of that to light, because it casts more light.
Okay, yeah.
But I think they were also noticing there's an effect that the full moon has on bees, even when they're in a cave.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I mean, I know so little. Like, I have like a GCSE level understanding of physics, but there are like magnetic fields. You know, I mean, that's the waves too, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And I also feel like it's almost a trap where we sometimes want to kind of rationalize like feminine powers through like the kind of masculine science.
Yeah.
And I think kind of just letting go of that and opening it up to just being magic, or just being like, you know, an undercurrent or an intuition, or like the collective unconscious, is also quite empowering. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like the question mark is something that comes so much with femininity, you know, and that duality that's been at play for eons, you know, between like masculine rationality and reason, and science versus like the association of femininity with this like unruly nature that needs to kind of be understood, and from being understood be controlled. You know? It is. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's also been a big thing for me, I guess, to kind of realize that with a lot of like the masculine domain, there's a lot of needing to know and needing to kind of categorize and label. And with the feminine domain, for me, it's almost a comfort in not knowing, right? And kind of being open to whatever life or whatever magic will present, right? And for me, that's where that's kind of the essence of creativity, right? Because if you know and you're following a blueprint or a format or a template, that's kind of like a mass production. But if you're okay with the not knowing and letting that expression flow through you, then that's creativity, right?
It's like, I don't know, it makes me think of you know, Frankenstein. And the you know, this man-made monster who's created by science and reason and blueprint, you know.
AI.
But as soon as
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
But as soon as Frankenstein comes into being, you know, you have this like, and as soon as he starts like discovering his own creativity, and you know, he's listening to the family, and he's learning about philosophy, and he's learning about religion, and he's learning about literature. You know, he becomes.
There's more to him.
Yeah, there's more to him, but that's like he didn't, you know, his like desire for I don't even know if it's a desire for knowledge though. It's just like his own like it's like a curiosity that's creative too, you know. But that is like the scariest. I think that, or at least in my reading of the text, that becomes the scariest thing, because not only is he like physically grotesque, but now he has this like capacity for self-creation in some kind of sense, you know. I mean, like, there's so much with that book that's interesting about femininity and masculinity, but
it's written by a female author as
well.
Yeah.
And they wrote it actually. They were doing. Do you know the story about? So they were all on. I think it was in. I don't know if it was Lake Geneva at this point. I think it might have been in England. So the weather was really shitty, and they were staying in the Lake District, and it was like Mary Shelley, Byron. What was her husband called again? The other Shelley, I can't remember his first name.
It's not important, he didn't write the book, yeah.
But like, they decided, they were locked in by the storm, and they decided to all write their own ghost stories to try and scare each other and keep themselves entertained. But Mary Shelley ended up writing Frankenstein based off of that kind of exercise that they all did together.
Okay.
Which is quite cool.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
It is really cool, isn't it?
I guess I wanna. Does anything feel missing from there, or does it feel complete?
From that section?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it. Unless you think that there's something more you want to talk about.
No, it feels good to me too. Yeah. And I guess what I'd ask is, who have your inspirations been? Like, you know, larger than life, like maybe celebrities, but also maybe like close to you, if you feel comfortable disclosing. Like friends or family.
Who are my other inspirations? I love Lady Gaga just because I think she's like a boss ass bitch.
Oh yeah? You know? I don't know much about her.
She's just such a force of nature.
Okay.
And she creates absolute bangers, but also she's kind of, I don't know, she's so lovable, but there's something almost a bit obnoxious in the way that she carries herself, you know, and I really respect it. I really respect it. Like coming to the Met Gala dressed in like slices of raw bacon, you know.
Okay.
Have you ever seen those pictures?
Like real bacon?
Yeah. She made a dress that it's called her meat dress.
Okay.
And yeah, she made this dress that's just raw meat. And I think it was, I presume it was a protest about like animal cruelty and the meat market in general. And she was like, I'm gonna come to the Met Gala and I'm gonna show you like what you're doing. But she just really served, and she rocks it. And I feel like also she's like, no one instance is coming to my head now, but I feel like she really just like gets up and says what she thinks, you know, and she doesn't kind of pander to the whims of like her team or what people might think about her, you know. And I feel like she's created this image. She's almost like impermeable in the same way that Donald Trump is, you know, where like she could do something really outrageous, but like because it's Lady Gaga, like everybody loves her still, and she never do anything too bad.
Right, a bit like a loose cannon.
Yeah, I guess, but always for the right reasons, you know.
Yeah, for me a story of Lady Gaga makes me think about what I was saying earlier about like the force of nature being a very feminine thing. It's like as human beings we have to cultivate a relationship with the riverbank, and if we're not looking after the riverbank, it floods, right? And that's like a calamity kind of thing.
Yeah, I should have thought about who my inspirations more, or who they are more before coming. I don't know. The other person who just like, you know, when somebody just like tickles your brain and you're like, wow, you're incredible, is Deborah Levy. Who, have you ever read any of her books? So I'm really like, I'm out of touch with so many things. She's wonderful. I don't know that much about her as like a person now, but I've read all of her autobiographies, and she just has this incredible way of articulating herself, where she her first book is about it's about her growing up in South Africa, and her dad was part of what became the ANC. That's the anti-apartheid party, isn't it? So he was part of the anti-apartheid party, and he ended up getting taken away to prison for I think like 5 years when she was maybe 6 or 7.
Okay.
And the biography is kind of narrating her experiences growing up as a child, and using that like childish perspective to talk about these like really like cruel political situations that were going on in the world. She ended up emigrating to the UK, and then like the other autobiographies talk about her growing up there, going on holiday, like becoming a writer, getting divorced, all of this. But she has this amazing way of writing that like is so kind of focalized, but she really like weaves in different like philosophies, particularly like most of philosophy, or the ones we have, are still written by men, you know. They're the ones that survived, or they're the ones that had access to the pen and paper. But she does it in a way where she like really like twists, or not twist, but like captures their words and then like embeds it into her own experiences and gives it this kind of like other lease of life through a more feminine perspective. And she does it in a way where like she'll give you these little nuggets of quite like complex ideas and arguments, but she unpacks it in such like a kind of like quotidian little sandwich that you're like, I understand that, and like I relate to that. Do you know what I mean? Like she just is wonderful at teaching, and it's gentle too, you know.
It sounds like she makes it real rather than it being kind of in the head and, you know, metaphorical.
Exactly. She de-intellectualizes it.
Democratizes it. Okay.
Exactly.
I guess feminine energy and how it shows up in your life, like
My life.
personally and professionally.
Gosh. How does it show up in my life? I don't know. I think like professionally, the one like glaring thing is that I feel like through socialization, I am so I've got a younger brother. So for my mum, she like, you know, they were very keen on like bringing us up with a strict diet of equality, you know. Okay. But obviously, you know, we went to different schools. We're different people, like we've grown in our own ways. And she was saying that she finds it really interesting because she was like, you doubt yourself so much and like undersell yourself in a way that like he does the complete opposite, you know, where he like, it's not that he perceives himself to be better than he is, you know, but he just has this like surplus of confidence when it comes to professional environments, you know? And I don't know, I feel like, I don't know if it's just me. I don't think it is. I think that it is like a feminine, or well, not a feminine trait, but like something that's been associated with femininity, where you have to, there's this, is it a timidity? I don't know, or just like a kind of always an intense awareness or self-awareness, you know. But that's a negative thing. What's a positive thing about feminine energy? I don't know. I mean, in the FDL meetings, I feel like there's such a wonderful atmosphere that's created. Like before, when we were talking about like being like challenged by some of the workshops that we've had, you know, I feel like that proclivity to just like play and be childish is something that's so special to those meetings, and like those meetings are completely founded off of this like communal sense of feminine energy, you know. And maybe that then links to these feelings of just like incredible like self-awareness when I'm in professional settings, you know, because you're like the outside world isn't one that's like necessarily supportive to feminine energy, or one that's founded off of it, you know. But that kind of guise can be shed when you're in the space that's just, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like in a lot of communities which are very rooted in their feminine energy, there's really a vibe of we're in this together, right? And in the business world, it can be very much you have to compete against everyone, and you're in it for yourself. At least for me, that's really kind of affected. When I was working in the business world, it really affected how I showed up, because I could never show up as myself because I was always competing with other people. And I was always kind of in this kind of, really weird competitive relationship to other people, instead of just being in harmonious relationship and being allowed to be me.
The shell.
What about the stuff that you were saying with Lady Gaga being kind of, I don't use that word again, loose cannon, but a bit like a loose cannon. Does that show up in any of your work?
About me being a loose cannon?
No, just like maybe like the themes that you write about, or? Yeah,
I don't know, but in this short story that I wrote, like both of the women are really, they're really like bolshy, you know, and they, I don't know. I mean, like, I wanted to talk about chess because I feel like chess is such a, it's for all intents and purposes like a very masculine game, you know, like it originates from kind of planning battles. But interestingly, like the queen is the one that has all of the power, you know, and the king is like the sitting duck. But the queen kind of has to acquiesce to her like feminine state in some senses, because like if the king is lost, then the game's lost, you know. Even though he's not the one that actually has the power. So I don't know. So yeah, then I chose like I was with my friends and we were having a drink, and I was like, I want Catherine the Great to be one of the characters, but like, here's another just like really, really intense, kind of like overbearing, but still like incredibly powerful figure who had to step away a bit from the limelight, or like it took time for them to gain power. We were talking about like Margaret Thatcher, and then I was like, I'm not going to put Margaret Thatcher in a story. Then we came up with Imelda Marcos, and like I mean, there's like I really like writing about strong women. And like both of those, I mean, there's less that survives from Catherine the Great in terms of her, you know, the way that she spoke and the way that she carried herself. But Imelda Marcos, like, that woman was so funny, you know, and like she's still alive, but I don't know, like the wit of a powerful woman. I just think there's nothing quite like it. I love to write about it.